Hey, we're on. We're on. Hello. Ah. I may or may not have pants on. I'll leave that up to your imagination. But let's look at YouTube today. Let's see what stupid shit is going on in the world.
Hey everyone, welcome back to the Harder News Recap of the Week. In this one, we talked about the NVIDIA N1X MediaTek ARM-based CPU showing up again in the rumors. It's been out there for a little while now in terms of rumors, but it's getting closer and closer to what we would assume is going to be a launch. It's supposed to actually get shown in 2025. Never happened, though, officially anyway. Additionally, talking about 70% of 2026's memory supply going towards data centers. Also, high bandwidth flash as a sort of emerging technology. It's pretty interesting. I mean, the use cases are largely being promoted for AI and data centers and things that we really would prefer not to continue going over all the time. But technologically, it's pretty interesting. HBF rather than HBM, basically. Some new cases out there. CyberPower actually has a pretty interesting one, which is weird to say, and it will be available standalone. And then MSI has its Lightning video card returning. This was shown a couple weeks ago at CES, and we're going to go over some of that as well. So let's get into it. Before that, this video is brought to you by Arctic and the Freezer 36 air cooler. We previously reviewed the Arctic Freezer 36, and were overall impressed by its mechanical build quality and design, with thermal performance also overall comparable with similar coolers on the market. The Freezer 36 performed well in our benchmarks and analysis with its dual fan solution, 4 direct contact heat pipes, and thicker fin stack centrally. Learn more at the link in the description below. Really quick GN update here. So for our AI Dystopia series campaign, we just posted a large documentary covering the rise of the memory industry. If you missed that, go check it out. That's part of the series that we used a sort of Kickstarter style fundraising for from our audience. And if you back to that, then we're continuing to ship through, so we're still within kind of the shipping windows that we estimated previously. If you haven't got your stuff, you should be getting it soon. And then also I'm going to be reopening the Ghost tier, which had the credit in the disappointment build. We're going to offer that again in a different video. And then additionally, we're going to do another round of backer Q&As for Ghost tier backers. If you missed the first round, we did 2 of them. And a lot of people, I think, didn't open their emails or something. I'm going to do one more. I'm going to send it to everybody again. So even if you already did the Q&A previously, we're just going to send it out again. Welcome to join again. And, you know, those are always fun to do, and I enjoy hanging out with the audience. So we'll set that back up, and we'll do one more round of them. And if you missed the first 2, please make sure you set your spam filters to filter for Gamers Nexus and for Ghost or something to surface it into your inbox. You get the bonus of if you get some kind of weird, like, I don't know, paranormal, like maybe there's a ghost that's doing a crypto scam and it's getting filtered into your spam inbox. Now you'll be able to get it if you filter for that. Otherwise, if you want to help us out with our ongoing coverage of the AI dystopia that we're living in now, then you can go to store.gamersnexus.net, and all those tiers are still open as we continue running our coverage and publishing it with all these deep dives we're able to do thanks to the backing from you. Okay, first story here.
Oh my God, Lily, quit, baby girl. It's time for you to quit. Oh my God. Well, you got a black shirt on, a black hat, and now you're a bully. Look at you.
So the Wall Street Journal reports that more than 70% of high-end memory chips, as they define them, produced by all manufacturers in 2026 will go to data centers. That is for both AI use cases and conventional use cases, but they're talking about high-end memory chips for this specifically. The International Data Corporation, or IDC, is projecting shipments in the PC market will decline by 4.9% to 8.9% in 2026, which is even worse than its initial forecast of 2.4% decline in November 2025. There is somewhat of a natural cycle here, a refresh cycle, especially as we exit the launch of the new GPUs. But this is a lot worse than normally from what we can remember, and that's probably because of something incredibly simple, which is people can't afford things, and that's for a lot of reasons. There are macro reasons for that, and there are reasons like the memory companies and making sure that all of their memory is sold at the absolute highest possible margin, dragging consumer up to enterprise levels. So anyway, big surprise, people can't afford computers, therefore don't buy them. Other industries are suffering too. The Wall Street Journal says that automotive and telecom companies don't want the newest standards, often using older, more robust silicon. The issue for those companies is that the DRAM Counterpoint Research said, quote, "You gotta buy a plane ticket and get that allocation from manufacturers right now. Those guys are selling their capacity, not only for 2026, but also 2027 and 2028, end quote." The Wall Street Journal's report ended on a bleak note, as Counterpoint believes memory will become as much as 30% of the total cost in the electronics that use it. When the Wall Street Journal asked how much non-AI companies will need to pay to get allocation, Counterpoint's representative answered, quote, "There is no limit," end quote. Now, a couple things here. One, it's not abnormal for memory companies to contract out prices for memory and commit some kind of volume far into the future, relatively far into the future. So Apple, for example, will lock in a contract price for something like a new iPhone, and they'll contract that out for whatever amount of time their memory partner is willing to lock them in. Apple has a lot of leverage in that negotiation because they're Apple. So that part's not abnormal. What's maybe abnormal here, from what we're seeing, from what I understand, is looking at the prior rumors and the public official earnings reports, which are not rumors. It's probably about the most, truthful statement you can get out of a company, I guess. Some of the memory companies may be shortening the duration of the contract prices and the lock-ins that they do for them, and that would be a potential new challenge where the memory prices are more in flux. So this was something that was in the news for Samsung previously. If I remember correctly, I think Samsung denied those rumors that they were reducing the duration of their contracts for the locked-in memory prices for some of their partners, except in this case, it's more of a he said mega corporation gaslights situation. But the total capacity of memory sold in 2026 for AI is also new. Data center and enterprise, they've used a lot of memory for a long time. It's just that it's really getting crazy. Where you look at the new Vera Rubin stuff, it's like basically a couple terabytes of memory if you add it all together. Even the DPUs have memory, and that's not even a part people talk about. So it's like, I think it's 128 gigabytes or something on the new DPU that NVIDIA has. So in other words, the short version is the beatings will continue until morale improves in the memory market for consumers. Up next, NVIDIA's long-rumored, often leaked N1X MediaTek ARM collaboration CPU is maybe finally coming out. This is supposed to be a mobile solution. It's in the rumor mill again. DigiTimes published an exclusive report based on information from what they call supply chain sources. It says that N1X will launch alongside a refresh of Microsoft's Windows on the ARM platform in the first quarter of 2026 for the consumer market. NVIDIA allegedly originally wanted to show the N1X as far back as Computex 2025, but obviously that didn't happen, and it still hasn't. Now, the rumors for the N1X are that it's supposed to be a collaborative joint launch with Microsoft. It's supposed to be a joint launch with Microsoft. God, it just rolls off the tongue. I can't help it. If Microsoft's too busy shoving half-baked AI into every aspect of the OS, looking forward to AI-powered Minesweeper, then maybe that's why they're not ready with the ARM solution and the refresh for the NVIDIA launch. DigiTimes claims that 3 other versions of the N1 will follow in the second quarter, and that the second generation N2 series will follow in the third quarter of 2027. We previously covered the N1X's earlier leaks, where the CPU showed up as a 20-thread part with a 2.8 gigahertz base clock and some of the benchmarks posted online. Now, a couple things here. Those might not be accurate. Secondly, they might change with the specs and the scores. The scores almost absolutely will change. At the time, assuming it was real, it had a single and multi-core score and Geekbench that were highly competitive with current-gen Intel and AMD CPUs. NVIDIA entering the consumer CPU market in any capacity at all would be big news. a major ARM CPU would also be big news outside of the incumbents that exist. Microsoft was, I actually honestly keep accidentally switching between Microsoft and Microsoft, and it's not clear which one I'm trying to say anymore, even to me. Anyway, we'll just keep that in mind. Whatever I say for Microsoft, it might not be intentional. Was that one intentional? I don't know. I've kind of lost track. But they were trying to do a big push for Windows on ARM, and that was big news. It remains big news if they keep trying to push it. And of course, NVIDIA CPU is big news. That moment has been brewing for a while now because NVIDIA also bought part of Intel, as you may remember from previously after the US government bought part of Intel. And that is to make, alongside data center solutions, also RTX chiplets for mobile solutions in consumer. So NVIDIA's got kind of a two-pronged approach here to getting into CPUs in some capacity for consumer. And that, if anyone is boxed out in any way, it might be AMD, because NVIDIA will be able to hold allocation over the head of the laptop manufacturers for the parts they actually want, which is the NVIDIA GPUs, to use the NVIDIA CPUs, whether that's just an RTX chiplet one or an actual like MediaTek solution. So we're most interested in the N1X's or the N1 series gaming performance, and NVIDIA could be looking to disrupt the handheld market as well with a fully in-house solution. Just the biggest challenge is, of course, going to remain ARM as the architecture. Now, Valve previously announced with the Steam Frame that it is also pushing into ARM, and they're doing that with development of effects layer. So there may actually be a path there to wider gaming compatibility in the same way that sort of Proton revolutionized Linux's gaming compatibility. Up next, Samsung and SanDisk plan to deploy a new storage technology called high bandwidth flash, as opposed to, say, high bandwidth memory, for example. And this would be used for NVIDIA, AMD, and Google products, they say, by 2027, late 2027 or 2028. And that's according to an article from Korean outlet. I'm going to go with CISA Journal. High bandwidth flash is, according to the report here, stacked 3D NAND that utilizes through silicon vias to connect to GPUs over an interposer. Some of that sounds familiar to high bandwidth memory. This, though, trades away speed for increased capacity as compared to high bandwidth memory. According to SanDisk, which has an article up citing the Korea Advanced Institute for Science and Technology, the initial concept is to use 100 gigabytes of HBM as a cache in front of a terabyte of HBF, they said, in order to mitigate the loss of speed. Currently, the downsides are speed and write durability. Also, that's a lot of fucking HBM. A professor from the institute, Jong-Ho Kim from KIST, said, quote, HBM is fast, HBF is slow, but its capacity is about 10 times larger. However, while HBF has no limit on the number of reads, it has a limit on the number of writes, about 100,000. Therefore, when OpenAI or Google write programs, they need to structure their software so that it focuses on reads, end quote. Now, of course, HBM could also technically be 10x in capacity on a product. It's just the cost and the technical limitations that make it a challenge. And so Flash is trying to solve that, and particularly high bandwidth Flash, which would fix the cost and the technical limitations that make it a challenge. And so Flash is trying to solve that, and particularly high bandwidth Flash, which would fix the
All right. Let's visit our Instagram buddies and go live over here, just like that. Let's visit our Instagram buddies and go live over here. A little Smoking the Bandit over here. Hello, Instagram. We're live. A little Smoking the Bandit. We're live on 3 different platforms here. House. All right. We're live. I didn't pay my Twitch bill, so we're over here. All right. I didn't pay my Twitch bill, so we're over here.
bandwidth part of the problem. A flash NAND is a non-volatile solution.
We're gonna
whereas
learn about
HBM
this
is
memory
volatile,
problem.
But
Why
Kim is
people won't be
also
able to
speaking
build
about speed
computers
and
for the next
durability as relative to
10
HBM.
years.
For SanDisk, HBF is predicted to exceed 1,638 gigabytes per second bandwidth, or about 1.6 terabytes per second, when the current top-end SSDs are rated at, say, 15 gigabytes per second or so. Also, 100,000 writes is a hell of a lot more than what you'd see out of 500 to 1,000 for TLC NAND or something. Now, what's unique is that in this context, from what we understand right now reading this report, HBF will be treated like memory. So despite being NAND flash, that's how it's supposed to be used. And the normal memory solution is treated as basically invincible. I mean, killing a stick of RAM just because you've pulled a lot of data and written to it a lot, it doesn't really happen. But it does happen for an SSD. And so that makes this unique, where it would require changes to how the programs behave, hence the professor's comments on Google and OpenAI needing to alter their programs to focus on reads rather than going through entire, say, PE cycles or something. HBF was announced by SanDisk back in August of 2025, and that was to address what it calls the memory wall problem. They said that the problem was the capacity and bandwidth needed to load the largest models, which has outstripped the memory capacity of the largest GPUs and compute accelerators. SanDisk indicates that this
Gotta learn how to slip down the models.
2019.
Can't have such large models.
Launch. The solution since then has been to pack as many accelerators together as possible in order to pool their memory. Massively boosting memory capacity per accelerator would allow larger models to run before clustering becomes a necessity. The same Professor Kim from the Korea Advanced Institute of Science and Technology says that HBF's development should be far quicker than HBM due to process and technique carrying over from HBM's development, and it would reach wide adoption by the time HBM 6 rolls out. Kim would know, as he's called the father of HBM. Regardless of that specific title, though, Kim's body of work includes papers on 3D stacking memory on processors, through silicon vias, and power distribution on the microchip scale. Certain aspects of HBF and SK Hynix's MSC really remind us of Intel's Optane, that Pat Gelsinger threw out with Intel's other bathwater.
Papa's here.
And actually, just kind of looking back for this quick news write-up about, really the focus was on the HBF sort of capacity that they're looking at versus HBM. But while looking through this, we found an old...
Yeah, because they're going to be shoving old computer crap down your throat. I can't wait. Can't wait to see what the hell they fucking going to do. Listen, if you haven't built an AM5 style computer yet, it ain't happening, bro. It ain't happening. No. See, the computer I just built, if I didn't complete it before all this stuff happened, I would have had to return it, because there'd have been no way I would have been able to afford the RAM. 32 gigs of RAM is the price of a PS5. How sick is that? How sick is that?
Old Pat Gelsinger quote, and we wonder if he...
So on top of that, now they're taking the older style stuff and trying to re-source it and sell it back because they won't be able to sell you the new stuff.
He regrets some of the statements now, given the proverbial 3D cross point that we are at for memory today. Gelsinger previously said, quote, "I never want to be in memory. You see, I'm doing everything I can to exit our memory businesses in that regard. When was the last time we had a logic surplus, not a memory surplus? Now. Now is the... I mean, look, it's a different time now than it was then. It's kind of like the whole concept of time, actually. I don't know if you... This is why you come here, is for really profound statements like chronological order. But the answer is now. So we're answering an old quote today. But the point is, memory is a good business to be in now, it turns out. NVIDIA is being accused of actively pursuing access to gigantic illegal databases of pirated books. Anna's Archive is the site that's referenced here, which is known as a shadow library that contains millions upon millions of books and articles that are pirated. Anna's Archive charges large fees for a high-speed access to its database, and the new complaint, the amended legal filing from a prior intellectual property lawsuit filed against NVIDIA, separate from the other intellectual property lawsuit filed against NVIDIA more recently. The complaint alleges that a quote from an NVIDIA representative was over gaining access to Anna's archive, and this aligns with the Meta lawsuit that we previously covered on our GNCA channel, which went over how Meta's actual piracy ended up with zero consequences. The NVIDIA rep cited in the lawsuit wrote, quote, "I'm on the data strategy team at NVIDIA. We are exploring including Anna's archive and pre-training data for our LLMs. Yeah. We're figuring out internally whether we are willing to accept the risk of using this data. I want to put that down in the list of things the lawyers wish you really didn't put in writing." The quote continues after talking about accepting risk, which definitely isn't an admission of realizing they're doing something wrong, to say, quote, "but would like to speak with your team to get a better understanding of LM-related work you have done," end quote. The complaint goes on to say that Anna's archive warned NVIDIA that the database was illegal, but it received the green light from NVIDIA within a week. The complaint doesn't explicitly accuse NVIDIA of actually paying for the access, according to Torrent Freak. This is a new development in an ongoing class action lawsuit against NVIDIA, with several authors as the plaintiffs, alleging that their works were used by NVIDIA to train some of its models without their consent or compensation. And again, this is separate from a different lawsuit against NVIDIA where some YouTubers, no relation to us or actually anyone I know personally, filed a suit against NVIDIA for intellectual property for training on their videos alongside thousands of other videos on YouTube. NVIDIA is making a fair use defense, arguing that an AI model doesn't copy and reproduce the stolen works. It just, what was the phrase they used? Examines them for statistical correlations within the content. That's right. It's a great defense. It's right up there with, I don't know. I didn't pirate the movies. I merely statistically correlated the collection of bits within the file package to then reassemble them into pixel by pixel representation of the visible spectrum of light that the rods and cones within my eyes then interpreted, statistically speaking. That's no piracy happened. We'll use the passive voice. That's what the corporations like to do, right? Yeah, that's what we were simply statistically analyzing the varying wavelengths of light that came out of the monitor after statistically downloading bits from the internet using electricity and also probably light, if you're talking about fiber optics, but now we're kind of getting into the weeds of it, and the point is it's only okay if they do it. You're not, that defense will not work for you. You are not allowed to do that. I'm just making sure we're all really clear, all right? So the line for can I steal something and it's okay versus can they, the giant megacorporation, steal something and it's okay, that line, it might look like it's about this far apart. It's actually like this. Like if we could go to like a 32 by 9 camera, it's probably still not wide enough. Look, I don't know, if you're Jensen Huang, then I apologize. I shouldn't be speaking on your behalf. If you're literally anyone except for Zuckerberg and Jensen Huang, then fuck you. It's not allowed. Up next, MSI is bringing back its lightning line of extreme overclocking focused GPUs as a late addition to the NVIDIA RTX 5090 GPUs, and this is with a dual 12-volt 2x6 solution. Now, previously, when Kingpin did a video with us, he had said how at one point NVIDIA disallowed them from doing two 12-volt high power at the time connectors on the cards he was working on. I think that might have been like 3090 Ti's or the 4090s, I think, early or something. This is, of course, a different generation. We had also heard discussion from manufacturers that they were disallowed from customizing to that degree. MSI seems to have gotten some kind of special permission here, and they're doing two 12-volt 2x6s, reportedly up to a 2,500 watt power limit, so that you can melt your cables at a faster rate than previously. The production run is limited to 1,300 units and 3 variants: the RTX 5090 32GB Lightning Z, the Lightning X, and the OSER. I would go with OSER, maybe. All three appear to share the same PCB design and are differentiated by binning and VBIOS features. The most extreme version is the Lightning OSER. As far as we know, it showed up first in hardware bot submissions from OC_Windforce. MSI sampled this special version to several extreme overclockers who took 17 world records on hardware bot. OC Windforce's photos show the front and rear of the PCB slathered in Vaseline, die sealed off with Kapton tape, and power stages adorned with copper heat sinks. The low-res photo from MSI shows the clean version. The dual 12-volt 2x6 power connectors are what jump out at us first. We haven't seen more than one on the GPU outside of the prototype from itself, and Galaxy's 5090D Hall of Fame XOC edition. The sheer quantity of VRM components is staggering. We count 40 power stages or so, which may be the most we've ever seen on a GPU. The right edge of the PCB has a few conveniently located voltage probe points as a quality of life feature for XOC. The special OCR version can be configured with up to 2500 watts for the power limit. That's according to overclocker Lucky Noob OC on Twitter, which is effectively no power limit. He also said it was sent to him as a bare PCB with no cooler, just a heatsink for testing and powering it on. The most powerful version made for public release is the Lightning Z, which ships stock with an 800 watt OCB BIOS and 1000 watt Extreme BIOS. For higher power, the page says, quote, the 2500 watt XOC BIOS is exclusively for extreme overclockers pursuing record-breaking experiments. Warranty voided when enabled, end quote. To us, that implies the card will maintain its warranty in any other conditions. That would include the 1000 watt mode. As far as cooling, the Lightning Z comes with a 360mm integrated liquid cooler with a full covered copper block. It has a screen on the front of the card as well. I think it's an 8-inch screen that covers the entirety of it. And it's clearly intended for vertical mounting. Also, there's carbon fiber. From what they're saying, it's even real. MSI lists the Lightning Z's core clocks at 2730 MHz boost and 2775 MHz with the MSI Center software if you're willing to run it. The Lightning X version appears to be the same as the Z, but with lower clocks of 2565 and 2610 with the MSI Center. MSI's Lightning designs used to seriously compete alongside EVGA's Kingpin cards and Asus's Matrix or Strix OC cards, and so they're back. Up next, some new cases shown at CES a couple weeks ago, but we thought they were pretty interesting and worth going back for. So CyberPower announced a few new standalone cases at CES. CyberPower is the system integrator. They pre-build PCs, but they occasionally have cases for sale separately. So one of those is the MA-01, which they call a modern analog case, pulling from the Fractal modern marketing style. Except for one problem, which is that the analog is because there's dials which digitally control things. Not really, but, you know, close enough. So the analog solution controls the lighting without software.
Stop.
We actually do like that. It's a good thing. Not analog, it's done digitally. Still a good thing. The parallel lines of the interior flow from the upper right side down and around to the rear by the PCIe brackets and the radius corners feel very good and Haven-inspired. The MA-01's top panel is unique, using a woven steel mesh. Now, this could have given CyberPower some fine control over the panel's porosity during development. On the other end of the style spectrum from the MA-01 is the EXO-66, a pseudo-urban-frame case being made for CyberPower by Fantex. Reminds us of the Thermaltake Core P5, but with vague influence from the old Level 10
Look at the chocolate around your face.
The XO626S has a separate compartment for the various components, trimmed in RGB light. OC3D shows removing the outer shell from the GPU area, which gives roughly 3 slots of GPU thickness clearance. You want to use a motherboard with use a board that has a second slot, limiting the actual thickness. The target price for the XO626S is $100, less expensive than we initially expected given the novelty. Thermaltake also had some announcements for cases, and it went big both in terms of the actual size and the The View Cross TG is still a concept, but they showed that one off. The current version is a very tall dual system case with room for 2 MATX systems sharing a huge single motherboard tray. The case can support either a single 420 or dual 280 radiators along the right side as well. Mounting 2 motherboards is the whole gimmick, otherwise it's just a metal box with some glass. Next from Thermaltake are the AX1000 Super Tower and the AX200 pedestal combo unit. Thermaltake hasn't published much about these, but they're even larger than the
Daddy, so mean.
Able to house 2 SSI
He's so mean. He's laughing at.
And honestly, it feels like kind of former Case Labs territory. The AX1000
He
and
looks like
AX200
Key and
look
Peele.
more
What's
casters, many
which
front-facing
one?
bays that were
I
tentatively
can't
CR5
remember.
1/4, and the overall sheer scale. Different companies have taken
looks
stabs
just
at
like
PC
him.
cases
I
over the
love
years,
it.
despite never really finding much of an audience. Thermaltake also offers including
Choose his hair
WX
color.
the next
Oh,
addition to
what?
the open frame core line. There's double curved glass, RGB light bars, an infinity mirror,
You're trying too
and
hard,
wood
man.
grain
You're trying
slapped onto
too
the
hard.
power supply shroud and slatted top panel. It comes in light and dark versions. Up next, just for fun, a modern project, the Nintendo PX Box 5.
You got 2
This
pairs.
impressive DIY hardware project by YouTuber and modder Xiaonin's XNZ that combines an Xbox Pro, Switch 2, right? Modern console. The modder same time, and then left space in the third side to dock the switch to.
It's like the
She
opposite
also
of the
cast
Killmonger.
metal
That's
using
the
a
white guy Killmonger
PLA
right
solution to do the casting. The modder then wired up a single power supply to run all the devices, designed and printed a shell, and added custom RGB lights and a power switch.
Oh, yeah.
Thus,
Oh, okay.
the Nintendo PXbox 5 was born. We're impressed by how clean the final project looked. It's just fun maker stuff. Right? If you like that, we've left the vast majority of the full details on this. Specifically, as a stream. Check that out, though. Really impressive modding done by Xiao Ninja. So that's it for this one. Thanks for watching. Subscribe for more. Go to store.gamersexes.net to support us directly, or patreon.com/gamersexes. We'll see you all next time.
See, it's not 2 times loop though. It's difficulty up, but not 2 times loop. Can't with you all day, all fucking night. Ooh, my daddy, he's so mean. You mean? My dad, he's so mean. Alright, Lil, just shut up. Would ya? For a while? A little bit, would ya? I don't need a wolf pack. daddy, he's so mean to me. He won't do everything I need him to do. Oh no, oh my baby. Oh no. Oh no, my baby. Poor puppies. Why is my daddy so mean? He's a mean, mean daddy. He won't let me jump all over him. All day and all night long.
Nothing here to see, just paws on rails. We're in safe to see, watching and flash.
Oh my god, this new generation. Just hook them up to VR and leave them alone. Don't these kids got their VR internet? Oh my god, I'm close to the tower.
I need to open the door.
Head home at the south elevator.
Stand by.
Notice, lost boot found near the central pillar. If it smells like regret, it's yours.
Closing rails, reruns, go, Forklift, spin the chargers.
Need that clean core. Da, 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 da.
Watch your backs, Raiders. The matriarch has been spotted near your location. Keep your wits about you if you decide to go anywhere near, and always keep a close eye on her children.
that stinks.
Hello, my YouTube friends! Gamers and streamers could be about to go extinct. I wish that was hyperbole, but it's just straight up reality of the way that things are moving. If you're an average Joe who loves gaming, live streaming, or both, and you're just getting started, or you have plans to build a game streaming channel in the future, well, those plans are in serious jeopardy. Hell, if you're a person who just loves to fire up a game on the old PC after a hard day at work or school and escape for a few hours, you're probably gonna want to hear this. So buckle up, my friends. I got a lot to unpack for you here. So you know what? Let's get to it! Now this video isn't gonna be all doom and gloom, I promise. I think there are actually two storms brewing, and one of these is gonna win. You can't be a part of the correct storm if you don't know that it's happening. So this video will hopefully be your weather vane. How we got here. Now please humor me for a bit. I'm about to go a little boomer on you, and I apologize in advance to my younger audience. Growing up without the internet may seem like a nightmare for a lot of you, but it was actually pretty awesome. There was nothing better than hitting the music store on a weekend with your buddies and searching through the racks and racks of CDs to find the most metal looking one. How did we know it was an actual metal album? We didn't. But if dudes on the back were dressed in leather and holding guitars, and the image on the front had skulls or some sort of evil looking imagery, it was a pretty good bet that it was. So how did we know if it was good? Well, we didn't know that either until we got it home and gave it a listen. But the thing is, this whole process created a lived experience between you and your friends, and you also owned the music that you just bought. So I paid whatever I paid, and I could listen to the music I just bought commercial free forever. And a lot of that music is still on my phone today. Digital music kind of changed all that though. The iPod and Apple's music service gave people a way to just grab the music they wanted, download it to a device. Now, this maintained the illusion that you still owned it because it was on the device. But in reality, Apple made it as difficult as possible to ever get the music out of their ecosystem. And then, of course, this led to streaming services like Spotify. For free, you could listen to anything at any time with commercials. A lot like a radio, except with personal music selections. For a small fee, you could remove the commercials and just have your personal playlist without any interruptions. All this had good and bad ramifications. I think it was good because it democratized music. Everybody had access to any music from any era at any time. The result is that my kids are as familiar with the music I grew up with as I am in a lot of ways. Now, I could definitely tell you that I was never exposed to the music of my parents' youth or my grandparents' youth growing up. It's not uncommon for kids these days to be Metallica fans, Anthrax fans, or even Beatles fans for that matter. Now, the downside is that artists were squeezed dry when physical media sales disappeared, and they were forced to make money through touring pretty much exclusively. You might be asking yourself right now, Mike, what does any of this have to do with gaming or streaming disappearing? Well, here it is. The pattern you see here in the music industry, where they turned a physical product, albums, cassettes, or CDs, into a monthly subscription and remove the product that you actually owned has happened over and over and over again since then. Movies and TV eventually went to streaming services which charged a small fee for commercial-free viewing of almost everything that you could think of. And of course, this turned into every studio opening up their own streaming service, charging more and adding in commercials. Inevitably, this ends up more expensive than the cable model, where you watched TV and then you bought movies that you wanted to own. It also all but destroyed movie theaters, taking away another shared human experience and replacing it with something worse. But I digress. And they've also done this with software. You don't own it, you rent it for a monthly fee. And the software you do own, like games, are still digital and can be yanked away from you at any time, even though you paid for it. Now, all of this was sold to us as being easier and more convenient, and of course cheaper. People just jumped on board, excited about the value and variety that they were getting. Once on board, they were upsold and squeezed by corporate America until the end product is more expensive and less quality than what we started out with. Where are we now? And that brings us to where we are today. RAM prices have spiked and hard drive prices are following suit. And of course, at the height of this spike, two RAM suppliers, Micron and Corsair, have decided to just abandon the consumer market altogether. Why? In a word, AI. Supplying memory to AI data centers is a much more stable and profitable market for them at the moment. And unfortunately, that fact is undeniable. And here's the issue that consumers should have with this strategy. The semiconductor tech industries are behaving as if the consumer market is indefinitely patient, the PC ecosystem is guaranteed, the AI payoff is inevitable. None of these assumptions are proven at all. Now, what is proven is that consumers built the PC market. Consumers normalized scale, and of course, us consumers absorbed decades of risk through upgrade cycles. And now, when margins elsewhere look better, consumers are treated as expendable ballast. That's not just disrespectful, it's strategically reckless for these companies. But that is where we are. This affects gamers and streamers because rigs to game and stream are no longer affordable. Sure, established streamers are gonna be able to keep up, but the beginner just can't expand and grow because the equipment is just too expensive. By an example, I recently bought an old BMW to restore in my garage. And then I bought an NVIDIA RTX 5090 to run local AI models. The graphics card was more expensive than the old car. I'm not even kidding. And that's just not affordable. Now, obviously, you don't need a 5090 to run a good gaming or streaming rig. But here's the thing. Your choices are getting slimmer too because NVIDIA and other graphics card companies are reducing the number of budget cards they offer as well. And this is going to limit your choices and raise the prices on the cards that are left on the market. Now, console companies, whom PC gamers have largely abandoned at this point, are pretty excited, I'm sure. But as anyone who's lived through the latest wave of console releases knows, Sony and Microsoft used the exact same tactics as the RAM companies without even having the external excuses like AI data centers to justify it. The pricing was ridiculous for those systems to start, and they were produced in such small quantities, people ended up paying a premium just to get one. And you know that shortage was on purpose, so where's it all going? Well, as of right now, the prices are going to continue upward with no relief in sight. So the next logical step is going to be, can you guess? That's right, hardware as a service. You can't afford to buy a graphics card to run that game? No problem. We'll rent you time on our card so that you can game. Microsoft, Sony, and NVIDIA would love to sell you a monthly subscription to their hardware services that allow you to play their games. This would also squeeze Steam out of the mix, which they're already currently trying to find a way to do anyways. I mean, they don't want those pesky independent developers out there. But here's the thing. We bought into music as a service, we bought into movies as a service, and even software as a service. They are counting on this one too. Then they truly have the own nothing and be happy model that they've been preaching about for years. And maybe it's inevitable. given history here, it seems like it is. But there is a storm front growing on the other side. A massive miscalculation on their part that they think can be controlled by slick marketing. But I'm not so sure it can. See, the big flaw here is AI on a couple of different fronts. AI companies have overpromised and undelivered, and people are starting to notice. This is the part that the executives dodge. AI today is, well, impressive at narrow tasks. It's useful as an assistant tool like emails and that sort of stuff, and it's fragile and opaque and costly at any kind of scale. But here's what it is not, at least yet: a reliable labor replacement, any kind of margin positive software layer so it makes no money, and it's definitely not a universally productivity positive tool yet at all. There hasn't been a single product directly related to AI that makes any of these companies any money. And it's getting to the point where they desperately need these to start making a profit to offset the massive cash outlay on these billion-dollar data centers. And it gets worse for them. On top of that, there's the simple human cost that's starting to come to light. What studies are increasingly showing is that not all AI makes people stupid, but that uncritical delegation reduces skill retention. Cognitive offloading weakens the ability to reason, especially when it goes unchecked. Over-reliance without scaffolding degrades expertise, so less experts. Now, we've already seen this same phenomenon in other things like GPS that negatively affects spatial reasoning. Except this time, this touches reasoning, synthesis, and judgment, higher order skills. And here's the damning part. Although not very surprising, there is no serious consumer-facing strategy to prevent any of this erosion. And then there's the quietest red flag of them all. There is no plan B for job displacement. There's absolutely no coherent retraining pipeline. There's no labor transition framework. There's no credible timeline. There's no safety net refunding model. The unspoken assumption seems to be the market will figure it out. But markets don't figure out mass displacement without social instability, political backlash, regulatory overreach, and consumer spending collapse. Which all leads to the ultimate irony. The same consumers being squeezed now are the ones that AI companies ultimately need to stay solvent. You can't hollow out the middle class and expect some subscription software service to thrive. Now, from the consumer's point of view, the message is pay more for hardware, subsidize the AI infrastructure, lose privacy, lose leverage, lose skills, lose jobs eventually. Trust us, it will all be worth it. That's not a value proposition, that's a demand, and consumers are starting to catch on and reject it. So what can you do? 2026 is going to be the tipping point, I think. This is the last year that AI continued to drain billions with no return in sight. And we need to make sure that they don't see any hope of a return. Now, right now, Wall Street keeps propping them up with more investment cash in the hopes that they're going to find a product that turns things around. And at the end of 2025, we've all seen AI companies get more desperate to justify this by running AI ads attempting to tout AI features to the masses. So those of us who know what's going on need to talk to our normie friends. You know, the ones who just watch some YouTube and play a game here and there, but aren't really plugged into tech. These are the folks that the companies that are putting on these commercials are trying to reach to get them hooked. So please, educate your friends and most of all, convince them not to pay for these services. And OpenAI is soon going to release a model of ChatGPT that has ads in it. And once it starts doing that, we've got to stop using it altogether. As an aside, you shouldn't be paying for these services either. Absolutely use them for free. That just bleeds cash from AI companies. But if you need to use AI more seriously, run local models that are free and about as good as the ones they're trying to get you to pay for. And most importantly, use any platform you have to continue to debunk and dismantle the promotion of these products by pointing out the flaws and undelivered promises, and most importantly, the negative social impacts. And I haven't even talked about the negative impacts of these ridiculous data centers, but you can look it up. Now, if you pay any attention to X, and it's perfectly understandable if you don't, this is already happening with every empty statement these companies make to try to prop up AI being torn to shreds, made fun of, and turned into a meme. One of the more entertaining ones recently is microslop. Microsoft's CEO doesn't like the term slop, so the consumer just called it like they see it, and I'm all here for it. It is time for these companies to come back to a more consumer-focused model instead of just taking advantage of the very users who built them. Now, I'm not here to say AI has no place in the modern world. I use local AI every day for simple tasks that help me create better content faster. And it also does my taxes. But after a crash, we can take back control. Development can happen organically over time within constraints of reasonable budgets and more responsible oversight. AI is not like previously disruptive tech. That stuff just made one sector change relatively quickly while the rest of us could catch up. AI is going to change every sector of society practically overnight. Now, I don't know about you, but I think that kind of disruptive change should have a much longer and broader public discussion about what we want it to look like. I also don't think it should be owned by any singular entity, i.e. some company. Corporations already treat consumers like garbage. They can't be responsible with the kind of power that AI is going to allow them to wield. I also don't think it should be owned by government. I think it should probably be publicly owned. And we should all have the chance to vote on the people who get the power. But that's just what I think. Tell me what you think down in the comments. And please talk to your normie friends, tell your parents and your grandparents. Hype and share this video if you think it's going to help. And if you're always looking for tools, tips, and tricks to help make you a better live streamer or YouTuber.
Another individual is dead at the hands of Border Patrol. Let's be clear. We do not know if there was any pushback from this individual who was armed. We do not have evidence that he was waving a gun, doing anything to threaten Border Patrol. He had his phone and he was shooting, he was viewing and recording the incident. That's what he was doing, recording the incident. Mm-hmm. What is your reaction? And you are an elected official. What can you do about it?
Well, look, I don't think there's any question a majority of Americans want President Trump and ICE to go in and apprehend the criminal illegals. That's what President Trump campaigned on, and he's doing exactly what he said. I look at what happened in Minneapolis versus what happened in Washington, D.C. When President Trump sent the National Guard into Washington, D.C., the Mayor Muriel Bowser, supported that. She worked, her local law enforcement worked with the president, and in a short period of time, they have really been successful in reducing the amount of crime in Washington, D.C. That was a big success. Fast forward to where we are in Minneapolis. We have a governor, an attorney general, and a mayor of Minneapolis who are getting people jacked up, trying to get them, convinced that this is, some type of illegal raid, that all their lives are threatened, and they've got all these white liberals coming in, trying to run over ICE, trying to, spray them and do everything to disrupt.
That was Fox's Maria Bartiromo, who seems genuinely irate at the fact that ICE has murdered yet another American on the streets, this time 37-year-old ICU nurse Alex Preddy, who worked at the VA. Now, a few points here. She's right that he was simply recording ICE, which is his legal right to do. She's also right that he was armed, which is also his legal right, considering he had a concealed carry permit. But it's also worth noting that while her outrage is justified, let's not forget that the reason this administration feels like they can commit crimes with impunity is because they get daily cover from their sycophants like Maria Bartiromo. She has been among the most vocal in her blind fealty to Trump, feeding her viewers a steady stream of bullshit to cover for his criminal and corrupt behavior on a daily, weekly, monthly, annual basis. they don't have to comply with the law when they've got people like her, like Maria Bartiromo, carrying water for them on national TV every day. Look, I welcome Maria Bartiromo's anger, and if she wants to start asking real questions of the corrupt party that she's part of, I welcome that as well. But let's not for a second pretend that she is innocent in all of this. She is a principal player in the modern MAGA movement, and it was her voice that in part emboldened the lawlessness that resulted in an innocent nurse being gunned down execution style on the street yesterday for the crime of recording a rogue agency. But frankly, Bartiromo's actions seem quaint here compared to James Comer, who makes Maria look like AOC by comparison. So let's talk about what Comer says here. First off, he couches his argument in this idea that a majority of Americans wanted Trump to abide by his campaign promise to root out criminal undocumented immigrants. And based off the polling, that's true. The problem is, that's not what Trump or ICE are doing. ICE murdered an American nurse yesterday in the street. A few weeks before that, ICE shot an American mom of 3 in her car. According to ProPublica, ICE has already arrested 170 U.S. citizens as of November, and that was 3 months ago. And even when ICE is dealing with undocumented immigrants, these are in large part not criminals. According to the conservative Cato Institute, only 5% of people detained by ICE have violent convictions, while 73% have no convictions. So when Trump promised to round up the violent criminals who were here illegally, that's all well and good, it's just not at all what's actually happening. But Comer goes on to suggest that in fact the fault here lies with the Democratic leadership of Minnesota. Surprise, surprise. So apparently, when 6 grown ICE agents pummeled a nurse holding a phone, unholstered his concealed legal weapon, and only when he was unarmed.
Okay then, Raiders, we are back and we have got loads to go over today as we move into probably the biggest week that we've seen for a little while, as we've got the new headwinds moving in coming tomorrow. We've also got new weekly trials that are in the rotation today, so we're going to bring you guys everything that you guys need to know with regards to that one and talk about how it is that you guys think this is going to go with the new matchmaking system allegedly coming through tomorrow. It's intriguing to see how this is all going to play out, and I want all of your opinions, so get your typing fingers ready for the comment section. If you haven't already, smash that beautiful like button and subscribe with post notifications turned on. It'd be so greatly appreciated. Check out our incredible sponsor, GamerSupps, the company that offer esports athletes and gamers alike with the most effective and healthy energy drink option. And we've got... So starting off, we are going to be here inside of the weekly trials. We have got some stuff to get on with, as we have got around 6 days remaining on top of this one, and a total of 27 days of the full ranking leaderboard. It means that we are now finally in the final month for this one, so we better get to work to make sure we get as high as we possibly can. The first weekly trial that we have, though, is the Damage Bastions. This one is pretty easy enough done, to be completely honest with you. You guys can utilize deadlines. You can also utilize the Trailblazers, which for me personally is the preferred method of doing it. Throwing down 2 or 3 Trailblazers underneath a Bastion will have that thing exploded in no time at all. So make sure that you are going around and utilizing those as well as you can. I would recommend maybe going into the Buried City, or you can find a fair few of them via the Spaceport map itself, but there's obviously ways that you guys have learned to do this by now. Moving in from that one, though, we have got Destroy Ticks, Fireballs, and Pops. And again, this is going to be heavily utilizable at the beginning of the week. This means that so many people are going to be going for these, which means you may well struggle with the Ticks, Fireballs, and Pops. But again, Buried City, having those buildings all over the southern region, means that Fireballs and Pops are pretty much everywhere. And if you really want to go in gun-ho, and you're able to with the nice enough lobbies, well, Stella Montis will be your pick of choice, as that is primarily where you'll find all 3 of these bloody little nightmares. Moving on from there, though, Damaging Wasps. This is a very, very easy one indeed. You can head over to Spaceport. You can utilize all you want to utilize by heading up to the highest point of the map if you want, getting an O-spray and just sniping down, utilizing these snitch scanners, because those snitch scanners are going to just bring in an array of wasps. I would recommend hoarding those and then going in for a big score. Don't just try and get him straight away. What I would recommend is getting a load of snitch scanners, bulking those out, and then going in for a separate run, throwing them all down whilst taking out the things you find on the map as well. Blue Gate, also a good second option if you guys are going to be able to get the locked gate great map, then you can find so many of these with an extra 10 minutes on the clock too. Moving on from that one, harvest plants. Now, harvesting plants is a pretty easy one, that's for sure, with 2 specific locations that you guys can head to. You can obviously go through to Buried City, where we know that we have the main plantation in the middle of the map that you guys can go ahead and source out. But also another good one to head for is Spaceport, as we do have the X in the middle, and you guys are going to be able to get those done on a 2x modifier, so make sure that you are ready for those maps coming up as well. And then we've got 2 damage Rocketeers, Leapers, and Bastions. Now, after the latest couple of weeks where we had Cold Snap and you were able to throw snowballs at these absolute nightmares, you guys by now should be able to do that quite easily. The best way to do this through Rocketeers, though, is by heading into Blue Gate during the electromagnetic storm or something along those lines, and having those amounts of bloody Rocketeers coming through is ridiculous. If you've got the lock gate availability, that is the place to do it. You've got 40 minutes. They sometimes fly around in 2s, and you guys can take them out very, very quickly by taking down the corners of their turbines or utilizing things such as wolf packs if you really want to use those. Overall, though, a very easy week indeed. Unfortunately, this does mean that a lot of your leaderboards are going to be very, very high. That is for sure. We'll have to wait and see exactly how high it is that they genuinely make it, because my lord, some of the scores that I've seen just recently have been absolutely ridiculous. What I have learned, though, is that earlier you start the trials, the more sweatier the lobbies of the trial leaderboards. So if you are able to leave it a little while, then I would recommend maybe leaving it a day or so before you start itching into some of these. That's just my 2 cents on that matter. Moving in from that, though, tomorrow is the big day, as Arc Raiders has now posted up this post right here, which states on the 27th of January 2026 is Headwinds. That's right, we've got the brand new update point that's going to be coming through for that one. Now, what it is that's actually entailed in that is relatively interesting and something that I'm genuinely really intrigued about. As taking a look at the roadmap that they provided us through Escalation, we can see that Headwinds is going to provide the new matchmaking option for level 40+. Now, this isn't a whole new matchmaking system. No, it's not necessarily going to change the way that the matchmaking actually works in terms of aggression-based matchmaking. We know that some of you guys love it, some of you guys hate it, and I do think that overall it's not the greatest way to matchmake, as it kind of leads into a very steep experience when you change up how you actually play it. But nonetheless, a new matchmaking option for level 40+. They don't go into any detail with it, so we'll have to wait and see how it plays out, but I would recommend hopefully it being something along the lines of having a restricted point for level 40+, which essentially is a more combat styled, which means that you have to have like a certain value before you can enter it. Would be very cool, but I think it is going to be as standard as it comes, by saying those people who aren't level 40 yet need to go into the one beforehand, and those people who are level 40 to 75 need to be in the matchmaking for the secondary. I don't know how it's going to play out, because it does say that it's a matchmaking option, so it doesn't state that that's just going to be how it is point blank. Maybe you can just rotate through into a normal lobby without the levels being gained. But irrelevant, as soon as the news drops tomorrow, you guys know that you can catch it here on the channel. Hopefully be the first place you actually see it, so make sure you stay tuned with post notifications turned on, as we'll be uploading the moment that thing actually drops. On top of that, we've got the new minor map condition with, again, no idea of what this is going to be, but it does state that it is a minor map condition. It doesn't state that it's a new map condition like the rest of the map does. It states that it's a minor map condition. Now, that is very, very strange to me, because I have no idea what a minor map condition is. What would apply to a minor map condition for me is the not the 2 times narrative. So when we have matriarchs come in, when we have the queens come in, they are a map condition change, but not on the 2 times narrative. That's my idea of a minor map condition. Whether that's actually the case or not, we'll have to wait and see, but I am very intrigued to see how that one plays out. And then we have got a new player project, which I am so damn excited for, as I really, really hope that the new player project comes in with the toxic swamps. We've already seen how it is that the player projects work. The expedition is sat in there all of the time, and the cold snap sort of a variant, which was the flickering flames last time, was the one that we ended up with. So I'm really, really hoping for something very cool which brings in a new map condition. We'll have to wait and see. The player project being a toxic variant for the toxic swamps could mean that the new minor map condition changes up the damn battleground into a swamp itself. As for the facts on that, you'll have to wait until tomorrow. I'm intrigued. That's for
Federal immigration officers fatally shot a man Saturday in Minneapolis. He was an ICU nurse who worked at a local Veteran Affairs hospital. Another controversial killing by U.S. immigration agents, and the second U.S. citizen killed this month. CNN analyzed cell phone footage from multiple angles. Taken together, they appear at odds with the Department of Homeland Security's initial claims about the lead-up to officers firing on Alex Preddy. Around 9 a.m. Central, video captures two people approaching a federal immigration officer in front of an unidentified vehicle. The sound of whistles is blaring in the background. Alex Preddy enters the frame here. He's filming an officer interacting with protesters and waving a car through. 15 seconds later, Preddy yells, in their statement, DHS said that an individual approached officers with, quote, a 9mm semi-automatic handgun. This video seems to show officers approaching Preddy instead of the other way around. We'll see later that Preddy does appear to have had a gun in his waistband, but this video shows he didn't have a gun in his hand, only a phone. Video from this white car shows an up-close angle of a federal immigration officer pushing one protester. Then, 3 seconds later, he pushes Preddy, and then as the camera comes into focus, you see the same federal officer push a third protester with the orange backpack. Preddy raises his hand and turns away, just as the officer sprays him with a chemical irritant. You see Preddy and the other protester trying to help the person with the orange backpack. You can see here an officer pulling Preddy off of this person. 3 more officers join, and then 2 more. Preddy is on the ground under them. One officer in a tan beanie can be seen repeatedly striking Preddy's head with a metal can. You can see an officer in a gray jacket walk into the frame. There isn't a gun in his hand. Seconds later, officers shout. The officer removes a gun from Preddy's belt. The officer steps away from the scene carrying a firearm, seen here in his right hand. Then, gunfire.
She's basically naked.
At least 10 shots ring out. We looked back at the scene from different
why would you do that?
and slowed down the footage.
Why would you do that? Come here. Come here. Why would you do that? Why would you do that?
Not very funny. Can you please?
No, it's okay. No, wait 1 second. What's so funny about that?
You see a second officer also had his gun.
Now this is like a $3,000 camera with a $3,000 lens. My phone can do a better photo than that. And that's the biggest issue a lot of my students have when they first start out. They just have too high of an ISO because they don't know what to do. Now the issue is if you're doing night photography or anything like that, this will happen. If you're trying to just raise up that, to see what's going on. Or in a situation where it's too dark and you physically need to raise your ISO higher, you have no choice to get a clean image than to use flash or use video light in that situation. All right, well, we will talk about that more. But dumbing it down, just know that the higher you go, the more noise you'll have. So your goal is always to keep that number as low as it can. Now, my rule of thumb for most beginner cameras under $1,000 or $1,500 is you don't want to bring your ISO higher than like 2,000. My camera is more expensive. I can push it to 8,000. That's the reason why people have more expensive cameras. And different brands can do different things. Sony is very good in low light. Other cameras are good at other things. Most event photographers and videographers, they like Sonys because you can push that ISO pretty high without the need for too much light. But look at the difference between this photo. That's the noise, right? And then the one that we took right after at a lower ISO. Like night and day difference. Now, that's all I need you to know. How do you guys figure out this number? Go home, take a photo at different ISOs until you feel like that photo you'll reach a point where you are getting to a point where the photo or video is too embarrassing for you to give to the client. And when you reach that point, you know your limit. But sometimes it is what it is. Like what if the room was truly that dark that I had to, would you rather give them a photo that looks like this and they can't see anything at a low ISO? Or an ISO that's really high but they can see themselves. Right? Sometimes a noisy photo is better than a photo of a black room. So sometimes it is what it is. That's ISO. Simple as that. Any questions on that? Now this is like a $3,000 camera with a $3,000 lens. My phone can do it better. Now this is like...
Honey, I'm ready. Oh, why don't you wear your trousers yet?
Xiaomi is trying to put me out of a job with this Redmi Note 15 Pro Plus, and I'm actually not mad about it. And this is the...
But you talk about the chaos that he's trying to uncork and the division he's trying to create. I guess my question for you is, if you think he's doing that, why do you think he's doing that? What do you think is the strategy, if there is one?
Because if you can keep people divided, if you can keep the American electorate deeply divided, then you can continue to loot the economy, enrich yourself, you can continue to pass corrupt laws. I mean, it's no mistake here, it's no coincidence here that this explosion in ICE funding is also a complete giveaway to the surveillance tech companies like Palantir and many others that seek to create billion-dollar contracts and enrich themselves off of a surveillance state that attacks the American people more broadly. If you can keep the American people divided, then they can continue on their program and their agenda of funneling billions of dollars in corruption, whether it's offshore accounts, whether it's these crypto coins, whether it's jacking up tariffs and costs on the American people.
Oh my god. Oh, my poor face. What do you say? I'm gonna clean your face. Clean your face. Your beautiful face. And your nose. Clean that nose.
Bubbies, relax, bubbies. Okay. Come here, Lil. Okay, okay. Don't have shit in there. I won't have to go in there. Oh shit, pussy. Yeah, shitty pussy. I'm not supposed to sell you. Huh? I'm not supposed to sell you at the market. You got poop that pussy. Huh? Huh? Oh, that's you. You've been tricked. Wow. What happened? I only got up to 2 stuff.